Really glad to be here. Great to see old friends and great to be back at HBES. It's been quite a few years since I was last here, and it's great to see it all growing and thriving. Most of you at HBES, I think your interest is about understanding behavior. I guess the reason I've always been interested in the evolution of behavior is because I want to change it. I want to do things differently. I want to make the world a better place in some small way. So what I'm going to talk about is applied behavioral science, applied evolutionary thinking. I want to talk about why do we want to change behavior anyway? And then a new approach that we developed to understanding human motivation, and then how we're applying that to getting people to do things differently. And then a few thoughts and pleas to you guys to help us take this forward, because we've been plowing a lonely furrow for a very long time, and we think it's an area where we need way more expertise, way more science, and a lot of gaps need filling in. I'm hoping some of you guys are going to be the guys that are going to help fill in those gaps at least. So my objective in coming here is to try and inspire some more work in this area. So mostly, you guys are doing the right thing, right? None of you have run up to the roof and have jumped off the top. None of you have flung yourselves on the floor and beaten yourselves up. Most of you are going to go and eat some healthy food at lunchtime. Most of you aren't going to eat it in the toilet, and you're going to use the toilet for the appropriate thing. Mostly, you've looked for and found healthy mates, and you've probably produced offspring. Some of you, at least, may have produced these horrible, screaming, nasty creatures that dirty themselves. And but yet, despite how terrible they are, we still manage to look after these horrible things, don't we? We still generally bring them up properly and safely, and to hopefully, mine are just about at reproductive age. I wish they'd get on with it. It doesn't seem to be fashionable to do that anymore. I want grandchildren. Don't tell them I said that on a public stage. I will be shot. And mostly, if we get sick, we seek help. So mostly, we do the right thing. But there's still problems, right? If we look at the evolution of health, we gently bumped along for millions of years, quite happily, with a life expectancy of sort of in our 30s, 40s. A lot of kids died of infection in youth. Some people survived to be the grandparents that, like I want to be, but only in the last 150 years or so. So things have suddenly started to change. Technology has changed the world. We've been able to feed people better, water them better, provide better sanitation, provide better medicine, provide a cleaner, healthier world, and provide a culture where there's less violence, for example. So the world's getting a better place, getting to be a better place. In the UK, apparently, my children will live to 104 on average. Amazing. Think of a world where you're bringing up a child that's going to live for a century. But of course, where I spend a lot of my time is below that line, below that average line in Asia and in Africa, where we're not anywhere near that. So there's a huge gap in health outcomes between North and South. You find the US on there as well. So there's, broadly speaking, epidemiologically speaking, you're well aware of this. There's two different patterns of disease. There's the infectious diseases of the South. They're the blue causes, the diarrheal disease, the respiratory infections, the poor outcome, the poor maternal outcome. 4 times as many disability-adjusted life years lost in developing countries compared to developed countries. That's, for those of you who haven't come across it, it's a measure to allow us to compare disease and death burden between diseases and between countries. And if you look along the bottom, you can see some of the causes: unsafe sex, not eating the right things, not cooking with the right fuels. Can't see from here. Tobacco, for example. The red diseases beginning to creep into developing countries now. The red diseases being the ones that we that we have in our developed countries, largely the vascular and cancer diseases, the red one. But again, behavioral causes along the bottom. A paper by Izzati et al. From 2002, which shows tobacco, alcohol, I really can't see, I'm really blind, physical inactivity, eating the wrong things again. So many behavioral causes of those major causes of disease in both parts of the world. Combine those together, and what do you get? 15 top risk factors for loss of productive life years. Different types of causes. I've lost the color, I'm afraid, from my little symbols. Look at the little syringes. The cause of smoking, alcohol, and drug use. That's highly motivated behavior, but motivated by bypassing the normal motivation system, using psychoactive substances to give you a reward without having to really do very much for it. Modern technology has enabled us to pick up drugs at the next street corner, to get alcohol at every. When I'm traveling on flights, it goes from the first thing in the morning till last thing when I arrive at my destination. I'm being offered free alcohol. It's become free. It's something. So then similar problems, but not quite the same. The little smiley face is high blood pressure, high cholesterol, overweight, low fruit and veg. These are super stimulating. Modern technology giving us cheesecake, giving us the burgers, giving us high salt, high sugar, high fat foods. And as a result, we eat less fruit and veg, and we're overweight. So hyperstimulating. A third type of problem, the little car, that's a symbol for labor-saving technology or enjoyable technology, but they have downsides. So the screen is an enjoyable technology, but the downside is you don't get up and walk. The aeroplane, I got here in 20 hours without hardly having to walk. Whereas in the old days, I would have been on a mule to get here for 25 days. Well, and a mule, probably needed a whale or something as well as a mule. An amphibious mule to get me here. But I would have had to do a lot of work myself to get here, whereas now I don't have to do very much. Except thank you very much to HBES for doing the work to get me here. But the downsides of those technologies are clearly things like injury, things like air pollution, and things like, in the end, high blood pressure and inactivity. And then I put a little hole for lack of uptake of technologies that we have, but people don't want them. They're not motivating to use. Things like condoms are highly unmotivating to use. They're unattractive things to use. Things like soap, not something that people naturally want to use. Same with toilets, actually, and even clean water, even purified water. People don't necessarily naturally want to use improved cook stoves. And we're making micronutrient supplements available to the world. So micronutrient malnutrition shouldn't be a problem anymore. Unfortunately, the supplements taste absolutely disgusting. And none of the people who are marketing this have quite got the point that you cannot force a child to take a micronutrient supplement that tastes disgusting. And so 4 categories of things. 4 categories of mismatch, which are actually learning problems. Modern technological advances that have led to disease problems. The first one, we learn to take drugs and take more drugs and take more drugs because we get a reward from it. Super stimulating. Every time you eat that delicious food, it's fabulous, you want more. The side effects, it's majorly rewarding to be able to hop on a plane and get here, but the side effect is I didn't get any exercise on the way here. Not rewarding. New technologies, but we know they're good for us, but we don't use them. So we know at one level, but it's not motivating to use them. So that is, in a very, very broad, sketchy way, is why we have these behavioral problems that we need to find, that we need to crack. Highly motivating with unhealthy side effects, or not motivating. New technologies like condoms or pills or vaccines, which are painful to take, but we don't want them. They're not motivating. So that was where we were about 10 years ago when I asked my colleague, Bob Aunger, who studies the evolution of everything, what motives are. And he went away and started reviewing the literature. I thought I'd employ him for 6 months and then he'd be gone because we'd have cracked the problem. But no, he's still with me. And we're still struggling with the problem because, lo and behold, nobody agrees what motives are. Nobody, there's just hundreds of different attempts to define them. They masquerade as a whole lot of different things: drives, instincts, needs. They were even called urges. There's a paper where we've put our proposal as to what motives are together, and it's in biological theory, which you can read. But there's the table that is the online in the online supplement for it. Those are the 20 most cited approaches to motivation, and that's the list of motives down the side. There's 77 different types of motive that we found. That's just a little slightly easier to read, but you're missing most of the table. That's the top of the table. So what you can see there is, I can't read. Yeah, come a bit closer. So attempts right back from the early 1800s to define motives. For example, James studied animals and children and came up with a proposition of 17 different types of motive. Murray looked at, did a whole lot of picture tests and came up with 17 different motives. Maslow studied the lives of the great and the good and came up with 28 motives. Then we had the cognitive revolution, a lot of attempts through a variety of means, lexical studies, for example, different motive constructs in the literature. Then we go on to Panksepp, who looks at animal emotions, and he came up with, you can probably read it better than me, the total number that he came up with. Fisk, for example, power is the main motive for everything, and everything comes down to power. Is Doug Kenrick in the room? Oh, pity. I was hoping he'd be here because I want to hear about his approach to motives, which is a more thoroughgoing evolutionary approach. And Barnard et al. used a more evolutionary approach. And then our proposal and how our motives map onto that table are there. So motives. We said, okay, let's start again. Let's start from scratch. Let's just go back to the beginning and see if we can puzzle this one out. We nearly broke our brains for about 5 years trying to work this one out. But we knew more or less what we were after. We were after behavior that is goal-oriented, behavior that gets us into better position for survival and reproduction, so behavior that meets needs. But that's getting kind of tautological. What's a need? There could be thousands of needs. We could just get it down to a few. So we have to constrain motives. We have to say what motives aren't as well as what motives are. So 2 types of things that aren't motivated. If I chuck my... Oh, you responded. That's reflexive. You're using your reflexes to carry on breathing and not fall off your chairs. I wouldn't say that was motivated behavior. That's algorithmic, cue-based behavior. And at the same time, those of you who are getting bored with what I'm saying are probably daydreaming about what are your kids doing at the moment, or is there going to be another party tonight, or is anything that Val's saying going to be any use to me in any of the papers that I write in the future? This is what humans do par excellence. We live in the future. We learn from the future. We imagine. That's why we've been able to take over the planet and other animals haven't been able to.